Well, here's some tea. Joe Biden is like dead. Those aren't my words. Those are the exact words of Henry E. Apple. Apple is not only a former spy, but he is a current White House National Security Council advisor. In fact, he works directly under Jake Sullivan. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with OMG, that stands for O'Keefe Media Group, it was founded by James O'Keefe, who also founded Project Veritas. They are known for their undercover sting operations. And what appears to have happened is one of their undercover journalists was posing as if she was on a date with this intelligence official. And so she had her camera recording, and he made this stunning admission during their first date.
Here's some tea. Joe Biden is like dead. He can't say a sentence. She's like really progressed in his whole age. Everybody recognized. I can't believe it wasn't a bigger scandal. He'll be dead in a year.
Of course, for any of us who are outside of the Beltway, this was really obvious. Not only did this happen this year, the cognitive decline, we all saw this 4 years ago, way back in 2020. There are people who have been beating this drum for years. So not only did the media cover this up, but it is obviously an open secret in Washington, D.C. And I think that is a very bad indictment on the establishment, on career politicians, and yes, our intelligence officials. Do they not see how dangerous this is? I think not only is it a risk to national security, which is ironic given that he works in national intelligence and supposedly national security, but it just further erodes the trust that people have in government, and it actively endangers the country. So shame on people like him. Now, when he was on this date, he gave personal anecdotes and examples of exactly how bad and how quickly Joe Biden has been declining. And one of those examples, he referenced his boss, Jake Sullivan, who is the national security advisor. Well, Jake Sullivan and Joe Biden were overseas on a trip together. And Joe Biden actually called Apple and said, "Hey, can I speak with Jake Sullivan?" And Apple had to remind Biden, he's actually on the trip with you right now. Yeah, it was that bad. Take a look.
My boss was on an international trip with him, like in Europe or something. The phone rang in the office, and I was like, "Oh, Mr. President, Henry." He was like, "He's Jake there." He's like, "No, he's traveling with you. He's on the same trip that you are."
Yeah, so this is more than just a stutter, right? The mainstream media and the Democrats, they tried to frame Joe Biden's obvious mental decline as a stutter, and they said he's just tripping on his words, and Donald Trump and the Republicans are bullying Joe Biden for his disability. No, it wasn't just stuttering. Forgetting that your national security advisor is with you on an overseas trip is more than just a stutter. That is clearly just more evidence that something is not right up in here. And we saw that whenever he was talking, he would lose his train of thought. He would pivot to subjects that were completely unrelated to what he was saying. There are many clips when he appeared to get lost on stage. I remember one of the most viral clips was when he appeared to be led on stage by a blind man who was using a cane. That's how out of it Joe Biden is. Just really embarrassing. And again, I think just a big indictment on not just Washington, D.C., but everyone who is in this administration, particularly Kamala Harris, who has seen this up front. If intelligence officials are talking about this that openly in public, then you know it must be really bad behind the scenes. And this man, Henry E. Apple, like I said, the person he was with was a female, so they appeared to be on a date, and James O'Keefe actually showed a screenshot of Apple's dating profile, and it says, "I overshare, and I share way too much on my first date," which we are seeing here. It's just absolutely mind-boggling that on a first date, someone who works in the intelligence community would share that much with someone they just met. Really scary stuff. Like, this guy is way up there in intelligence. To be working directly under Jake Sullivan, to have the president personally call you, big red flags everywhere. Now, Apple goes on to list a separate incident where Joe Biden calls the office. Apple's the only one left. And again, Joe Biden is asking for Jake Sullivan, and Apple tells him, no, you're going to have to call him on his cell phone. And apparently, Joe Biden forgot like that and called the office again and was like, "Where's Jake? Where's Jake?"
A couple weeks ago, I was like the last one in the office, and he called for my boss. And so I picked the phone and said, "Hello, Mr. President. Like, it's Henry on Jake's phone. He's left for the day, but I can try to get him on the line for you." And he like asked me some questions, and I was like, "I don't know. Like, let me get the track him down. Let's call his Secret Service detail." It's like I'll try his like unclassified phone. Like then like 10 seconds later, same phone. I picked it up again. I was like, "Hi again, it's Henry." He was like, "Is Jake there?" And I was like, "No, you called the same office."
Now, I know there are going to be some people out there in the comments who are going to try to give Joe Biden a pass on this one, right? They're going to say, well, we do the same thing when we work with customer service, right? So sometimes when it comes to customer service, like you're getting a refund or if you are filing a complaint, sometimes it depends on who you get on the other side of the phone. Sometimes you'll get an agent who is really sympathetic, and other times you'll get an agent who just doesn't care, they won't give you the time of day, or they're just really dismissive, condescending. And so I could see a world where someone gives an excuse for Joe Biden and they say, you know, maybe Joe Biden called the office again, hoping to get someone else who could get him in touch with Jake Sullivan. But I actually watched that clip multiple times, and what Henry E. Apple says is really interesting. He says that I picked up Jake Sullivan's phone. So what that suggests was that he actually picked up not just like an office phone, not just a generic phone out in the middle of the office, but specifically Jake Sullivan's office, and picked up the phone from his desk. And so for Joe Biden to call twice back to back like that and apparently not give any indication is really alarming. And again, you couple that with the previous story that Apple was telling of the overseas trip and Biden forgetting that Sullivan was with him overseas. It's not painting a pretty picture here. Now, the next example that Apple gives is Joe Biden seeming to forget the dual meaning of the word novel. Of course, there's novels that we read, but there are also novel ideas. Now, if you were, I don't know, in third grade, I could understand why you wouldn't understand the dual meaning of the word novel, but for President of the United States, you should probably know that words have multiple meanings.
Another time my boss went into briefing, I had heard the talking points. I said like, "Oh, this is like a novel phenomenon or something. Like, it's new. Like, it hasn't been done before." My boss said it. I was just like novel? Like, what do you mean, like a book? Like, what do you mean novel? The two meanings of the word novel, like, he lost that.
Just really embarrassing. And if Joe Biden doesn't even realize that the word novel has two meanings, then how does anyone believe that he can even understand these intelligence briefings that he's getting from people like Apple or from people like Jake Sullivan? If he can't understand the meaning of words, how in the world is he making decisions for the entire country? So to me, that raises the question, who is actually in charge here? Is it Joe Biden? Is she the one signing Joe Biden's name on everything? Is she the puppet master behind the strings, or is it the administrative state? Are there just so many people around Joe Biden and he's just an empty vessel? He's a puppet for everyone and they're able to mold him to do whatever they want. I don't know. I don't have the answers. I'm just saying that those are legitimate questions that we deserve answers to. And I hope that the Trump administration, while, yes, they need to be focused on the future, yes, they need to be focused on the next 4 years and be focused on delivering jobs, a healthy economy, security, and a secure border for the American people. I get that they need to do that, but the Trump administration also has to investigate this obvious corruption. They need to investigate the cover-up. Who knew it and when? This endangers the entire country. And something like this cannot be allowed to happen again. Without transparency, people aren't going to trust the government. This is an issue that is beyond Democrat and Republican. Everyone should be on board on this. And I think what's really alarming is that the media, for about 24 hours, they seemed to acknowledge that Joe Biden was unfit to run again for office. But if he was unfit to run again for office, why aren't they ringing the alarm bells now? Where is the media panic now? you don't age backwards. Your deterioration only gets worse, gets faster with time. So the fact that the media after the debate was all up in arms about Joe Biden, but right now, months later, they seem to be quiet about this. Right as we're having mysterious drone sightings, as things are getting worse between Russia, Ukraine, who knows what China is up to? Come on, media, come on, Democrats, just do your job. Now, what was particularly interesting about this first date with the undercover journalist was that she asked multiple questions. They weren't just all about Joe Biden. She actually asked him, what was the mood like after Donald Trump won? And Henry revealed that people all over DC were crying. I know people love meltdowns, so this is just some juicy insight.
So everybody's probably like juicy drums, right? What?
No, wait, it's like drawn us closer to each other because like we're all going through it together, you know.
We shared trauma.
Yeah.
It's a thing. Trauma bond.
We're trauma bonded, yeah.
Right. What was it like when you guys found out?
There were a lot of tears the next morning. Sure. I gotta find a new job.
Yeah, you definitely need a new job. First of all, as an intelligence official, you should not be giving out information like that publicly on a first date, like in the middle of a restaurant where anyone can hear you. Can you imagine if that was a Chinese spy? I thought security officials, intelligence officials were supposed to be smart. I barely talk about my work life with friends, let alone strangers. I think most people keep things secret. Maybe you'll vent about a rough day at work, but it's not like you're going out there telling everyone the details of your job. Can you imagine going on a first date with someone and being like, here's the tea. Let me tell you the truth about the president. Let me tell you this. Again, if she was a Chinese spy, I think over in China, they know. Everyone can see Joe Biden's obvious decline. But there are some people out there who maybe need more evidence. I can see a world in how some people would be duped and fooled by the mainstream media narrative. Maybe it's the stutter. Maybe it's, oh, he's just tired and confused. Unfortunately, there are people out there who buy into that crap. There just are. So not only did he confirm what the rest of us have known publicly, but he framed it as insider information to someone he just met. So again, had that been like a Chinese spy, this could have been really dangerous. Being like, hey, you guys are actually onto something. He's actually not all there. The president isn't actually the president. You know what I'm saying? This is really dangerous. So I think people like him need to be held to account, which leads to the next point. He is afraid. Everyone in Washington, D.C. is afraid of being investigated. First of all, if you didn't do anything wrong, you shouldn't be afraid of transparency. And it's the lack of transparency that is leading to these investigations in the first place. Trump isn't going to investigate people just for the sake of investigating them. He's not going to investigate people just to try to bankrupt them or to get revenge on them. The places he's going after are the places that need sunlight. They're the places where suspicious activity has happened. And when it comes to Joe Biden's cognitive decline, that is so dangerous that, yes, there needs to be investigations into that. Obviously, there are other things that need to be looked into. But first of all, if you proactively covered up for Joe Biden, then you proactively endangered the country. And second of all, an investigation into those people, I mean, Trump has been investigated for much less. Let's just leave it at that. Here is Henry Apple freaking out about the investigations.
So, like, I'm kind of concerned about, like, them coming after us.
Wait, what? Like how, like legally or something? Like
Stress.
what would that look like?
I don't know, they make up, like, a fake scandal.
Like, yeah. And just like, put you in jail.
No, not in jail. Yeah, they'd, like, investigate us or whatever.
Did you hear that? I think what Democrats say, what they fear, is really more indicative of what their side is doing than what Republicans actually do. He said that Trump would probably, or could, he alluded to it anyhow, that Trump could make up a fake scandal to investigate people. Where do you even get that idea? Is it because you're doing it already? Is that because you're doing it right now? Is that because you made up fake scandals against Donald Trump? We all saw the lawfare. We've all lived through the last 2.5 years. Mysteriously, you leave him alone immediately after he leaves office. Then once he declares his intent to run for president, once he actually runs for president, all these lawsuits come up, all of which have mysterious ties back to the White House, to the Justice Department. Again, I do think that when Democrats accuse Republicans of doing something, it's really indicative of what they themselves are doing. Because who would even think of that? If I got elected president tomorrow, that thought of framing someone, creating a scandal to go after them, seriously, that is sick, perverted thinking right there. Why is that even on your mind? But like I said, he is an intelligence official, so he should know all about that. Now, the last thing they talked about was that he actually knew that Trump would win, which, of course, wasn't a shock to the rest of us. I know a lot of people were worried. They were worried that the polls were overestimating Trump. They were worried that something could happen, right? Maybe we would have a repeat of 2020. But this man, Henry Apple, knew that Trump was going to win. And he knew it because Kamala was so bad. He knew it because she stood for nothing.
What do you think Trump is going to win? Dad? How so?
So I thought Kamala ran a terrible campaign.
What did she have?
She just doesn't believe in anything.
That's not good.
I know that like Biden and his team did not like that they got pushed aside.
Wait, so his people don't just remarkably follow?
Of everything he said during that date, he left out the most important T. Oh, OMG, O'Keefe Media Group. James O'Keefe, please, if this video ever gets back to you, please, next time, make sure your undercover journalists know to ask, does Joe Biden hate Kamala Harris? Because that is what we all want to know. That is the important question. I mean, am I wrong? If you disagree, let me know down in the comments below, but I really want to know that. Now, a few things. Number one, of course, as I've been ragging on in this video, the cover-up is detestable. Detestable. But on top of that, the fact that he is still president right now tells you one of two things, I think. Obviously, a lot of possibilities, but I think these are the largest ones. Number one, Joe Biden's team is holding on. They want to hold on to the cover-up because it's just pride. I think that is very real. But I think there's also, in addition to pride, I think the other possibility is they know that Kamala Harris is so uniquely unqualified to be president that she could actually be more dangerous than Joe Biden not functioning properly. Truly. And if that is the case, if they are proactively keeping Kamala Harris out of the Oval Office, keeping her from becoming president, then that should permanently put to rest this idea of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And again, no one is against diversity. No one is against inclusion. However, people need to actually be qualified for the positions they're in. We can promote diversity, we can promote inclusion, but the people still have to be qualified. Don't put someone in in other words, their qualification cannot be their gender. Their qualification can't be their skin color. It can't be any of those things. I think you can fight for those issues, but you still have to have the fundamentals in place. And that clearly is not the case with Kamala Harris. But as always, all of that is just my opinion and analysis. That is what's going on in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So what do you think of this undercover sting by O'Keefe Media Group? I know there are a lot of people who don't like James O'Keefe, especially on the left. They accuse him of manipulating and editing these clips, but I don't think that's the case. The biggest accusation came from Planned Parenthood, but that was a multi-week operation. They had hours and hours of footage, and they had to distill it down into digestible chunks, because who on social media is going to sit through an hour of this stuff? So of course it gets edited. What's important is that the spirit, the intent, the meaning, the context is all presented as it happened. And based on OMG's original video, I believe it was all there. So do you think that this is accurate? Do you think that this is just a security official, intelligence official talking out of his butt? Or do you think that this really is indicative of the cover-up that's happening in Washington, D.C.? An open-air secret that they think they're keeping from the rest of us. How arrogant. Truly, how arrogant do you have to think that only people in DC know this secret and you're able to bamboozle the rest of us? Shame on you. Tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, so tomorrow, Thursday 18th, will be the Christmas music piano live stream here on the channel. I am taking requests, so if you haven't already, please leave your requests down in the comments. There are a few songs I haven't even heard of, and so I've definitely added those to the list because I think it's always fun to look at new pieces. And so it's fun so many of you have shared meaningful stories of Christmas pieces that mean a lot to you. Perhaps it was a spouse that sang with you, or a parent, or there are family stories behind these. And so I hope I'm able to do the pieces justice tomorrow. And it's just meant to be a celebratory, relaxing type of evening. And so I hope you're able to join. And if you're not, the live stream will be available for immediate replay. I'm going to pin a link down to the live stream in the comments below. I hope to see you there. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I know it's a simple thing to ask, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.